Hey, welcome to Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. Thank you to MD Helicopters for sponsoring this special in-person interview of Jake Durham and Drew Muench from the Oxford Police Department Aviation Unit. The Oxford Police Department chose the MD Helicopters 530F model as their primary airborne mission platform due to its exceptional versatility and performance characteristics tailored to their operational needs. The MD530F agility and maneuverability make it ideal for various law enforcement tasks, including surveillance, search and rescue operations, and aerial patrols. Its powerful Rolls-Royce 250-C30 engine provides reliable performance in both urban and rural environments, crucial for the department's diverse operational landscape. The helicopter's compact size allows for efficient deployment and maneuvering in tight spaces, enhancing operational flexibility during critical missions. Equipped with advanced avionics and mission-specific equipment, the MD530F ensues enhanced situational awareness and operational effectiveness, enabling the Oxford Police Department to uphold public safety and respond swiftly to emergencies across their jurisdiction. To discuss the Oxford Police Department Aviation Unit, Jack Schonely and I get to talk with Lt Jake Durham, the mastermind and commander behind Oxford's Aviation Unit, and Drew Muench, their chief maintenance pilot, inside of Oxford's beautifully purpose-built hangar. Jake Durham, whose deep roots in law enforcement and public safety shaped his aspirations. Inspired by his family's legacy and an influential flight with the Alabama State Troopers Aviation Unit in 1997, Jake pursued a career in law enforcement. Starting as a patrolman with the Piedmont Police Department in 2003, he later joined the Oxford Police Department, where he climbed to the rank of lieutenant. Jake's visionary leadership led to the creation of the Oxford Police Department's Aviation Support Unit in 2011. Despite initial setbacks, he meticulously developed the administrative components and overcame challenges in acquiring suitable aircraft. From a motor glider in 2013 to an OH-6 and later a TH-67, Jake's persistence paid off. In 2016, he designed and managed the construction of the department's Special Operations Facility, housing the Emergency Services Unit, Technical Services Unit, and Aviation Support Unit. Jake's dedication continued with the refurbishment of an OH-6 helicopter in 2020 and the procurement of an MD530F in 2021, enhancing the unit's capabilities. Chief Maintenance Pilot Drew Muench's aviation career spans over 3 decades. Starting his flying career in 1983, as a line boy at a small airport, he earned his flight time through dedication and passion. His journey took a pivotal turn in 1988 when he began his path to become a Marine aviator, only to pivot to the Army due to an injury at OCS. Serving 10 years as an Army pilot, he mastered multiple aircraft including the H-1, UH-1, OH-58, and CH-47 Chinook, and became an esteemed instructor pilot. Transitioning to civilian life as an airline pilot, he faced challenges such as furloughs, but found his place at NetJets, where he thrived as a Citation X captain and international training instructor. His dedication to aviation extended to helping establish the Oxford Air Support Unit in 2015, where he continues to guide the unit as chief pilot. Thank you to our special sponsor, MD Helicopters, as well as Shotover and Technosonic.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Join your host, John Gray, Jeff Ratkovich, and Jack Schonely.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
4 on the stop. You're in custody.
Good advising code 4 on the stop.
Hey, welcome to the Hangar Z podcast. I'm your host, John Gray. Really special podcast recording today. One that we've talked about making happen for quite a few years, and we've actually made it happen now. We are in person live at Oxford PD in Alabama. So this is a pleasure for Jack and I to be here and to come into your guys' facility. We've seen a lot of your facility through your social media, and your guys' social media is one of the top social media accounts as pertains to public safety that I've seen.
Right.
So I'm excited to not only get into what your unit does, how you've grown this unit to what it is, but how you're continuing to promote the unit through the use of social media and just all the cool stuff you guys are doing. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you for opening your doors and letting us in. This is
absolutely anytime.
Yeah, this is awesome. So to go backwards a little bit, you and I first started talking a couple years ago at AppsCon, and I didn't know anything about your unit, but it pretty quickly became evident that you were building and have built an amazing program down here.
Thank you.
So it's been great to get to know you, and it's really cool to be here in person to talk to you and Drew. So let me introduce you guys real quick. Jake Durham, you're a lieutenant at Oxford PD. You're in charge of the aviation program. And we've got Drew with us. He's a chief pilot in the program. And you're not only a chief pilot here, but you're a airline pilot with NetJet.
Correct.
What a cool kind of mix of aviation experience. So happy to be here with you guys, and thanks again for opening your doors. And
Absolutely,
and letting us
anytime. This is a pleasure for us. We've been waiting on it a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, we met each other back at AmpsCon. I think it was in Orlando.
Yep. No, it was New Orleans.
New Orleans, that's right.
Yep.
Anyway, there were several of us, and there were a lot of different topics. And I think mutual friend introduced us. And we've been talking ever since about a podcast. So
Yeah.
this is it's a good time because we've progressed a little bit since then. So we've got a little bit more to talk about.
Most of our recordings are done remote. We do very few of these actually in person. So it's really cool to be here in person. And so I've mentioned Jack, but Jack, you're with us?
I'm actually here. Yes, I'm here with you. This is really exciting. This is being in person, like you just said, is changes it a lot. Where we get to see their facilities, see their aircraft. We flew in their aircraft. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
So I feel lucky to be here, and the hospitality's been great, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. This is all made possible by Vertical, MHM Publishing, Mike Reno. We pitched this idea, and what we're doing is we're calling it the Vertical Valor Hangar Z Road Tour. And the idea is we start here at Oxford PD. Jack's teaching his class tomorrow. And then from here, we move on to Nashville PD. We fly with Nashville Metro and do some content creation with them, do a podcast. Then we move on from there to Bell. We got to go visit Bell and their Piney Flats facility, and hopefully catch a podcast with them. And then move on from there to Washington, D.C. So we're flying with D.C. Metro, and then we're flying with the D.C. Park Police also. Man, this is something that I couldn't have done on my own. Jack, you stepped in and done majority of the planning and all the logistics that go into this. It's a lot of work. So thank you very much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It's fun. And I knew we were going to have fun and get a lot of work done. The content that we're covering this week it's amazing what we're going to do in a week.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
So yeah, thanks again to Mike Reno and MHM Publishing for making this happen.
Thank you, Mike.
They not only let Jack and I on the road together, but they let us go on the road with Brent Bundy.
Yeah.
The three of us in the same car, in the same place. It's probably not a good idea.
A little bit of trouble coming up.
But it's been fun so far. Nobody's gotten arrested.
Yeah.
We've had no problems yet. So I think we're off to a good start.
We're ahead of the game.
Yeah. With the Hangar Z podcast, typically we do Drink of the Day and the Hot Seat. But as I kind of thought through this conversation and developed our outline, I realized we've got a lot to talk about. So we're going to bypass Drink of the Day and the Hot Seat. And maybe we'll catch a Drink of the Day after the podcast is over at a local spot. But for now, I just like to kind of hand it over to you guys and just introduce yourself, what your current title is and role. And we'll kind of go from there. And Jake, we'll start with you.
First of all, thanks for being out. This is something we've talked about for many years, and to finally actually get to do this in person this is great. When we started the unit, which we'll talk more about, but starting the unit from a one-page proposal, and then 12 years later, through all of those trials and hardships and the fun times, bad times, that kind of stuff, and we're actually doing this. This is a pretty big deal. So thank you guys for being here for that.
Yeah.
But my name is Lt Jake Durham. I'm with the Oxford Police Department's Aviation Unit. I've been the commander of the unit, I guess, ever since we started this thing. I don't guess there's any formal date that, I became christened to be the unit commander or whatever. So been doing it for a long time. Prior to doing this full-time, which I've been over here in June, will be 2 years as my full-time position with the police department. Prior to that, being a patrolman, and then working as the chief's executive officer. Yeah, it's been fun. So that's what I do now. It's been a blast.
Yeah, we talked, and we'll talk more about this as we go, but we've talked at length in the past about starting a unit and what's involved with that. And there's so much that goes into starting a unit, and a lot of what you hear is no.
Yeah.
And you've got to find a way to overcome the hurt feelings that come with no, and push on and keep asking.
Yeah.
And at some point, you've proven, with enough determination and political savviness, you overcame that, and everyone's political situation is different. But I think given, what you've experienced, you probably have a lot of advice for folks that might be in a similar situation. I look forward to kind of digging into how you started that and kind of where it's been.
Yeah.
Drew, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is here.
Well, my name's Drew Muench. I'm the chief pilot for the unit. I've been with the unit since pretty much when we got our first helicopter in 2015.
Yeah.
My background is military flying and airlines. So, and I was able to bring a little bit of, because I was in a standardization program, both in the military and then with the airlines, so I can bring some standardization ideas to it and write our policies and stuff like that. So I think that's been helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that you're on the airline side, bringing a lot of the standard SOPs that came from that industry over here, I'm sure has been invaluable in developing a lot of the policies and procedures and how you do a lot of what you guys do.
I steal from both. I steal from I'm an Army pilot, so I steal for a lot of the task condition standards for the Army, and then with the 121 world, how the different operations and how we can do more CRM, and that's all come together. I think it's pretty well. We're always improving it and seeing, we're trying new things and seeing what we like, because sometimes the 121 world is doing different things now. Like our threat briefings have been totally different than they used to be in the past, and we're going to start implementing that here. I think it'll make it a little more efficient and more crew involved.
Yeah, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. You know, you're taking these different parts and pieces from different segments of the airline industry or aviation industry and bringing them here to benefit the program as a whole and the region as a whole. Prior to our recording today, we did a in-flight podcast with you guys, and just getting up to go and fly and see how you guys are kind of a regional asset was pretty cool. You know, you talk about it, but until you actually get up and fly and see how close you are to these different cities and kind of the proximity you guys are to, is it Anderson?
Anniston.
Yeah. That's next door.
Yeah,
Man,
Anniston's just right over the hill, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a 30-second flight before we get into Anniston city limits. So
Yeah.
it only makes sense if we have the resource to share that with Anniston. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits to that, and partnerships is something we talk about a lot too.
Yeah.
You've definitely forged those partnerships. And I think that probably has a lot to do with the success of your program so far, is the partnerships that you've forged along the way, is whether they're within your city or from outside partnerships. That's awesome. You submitted a program or piece of paper, like, was it 12 years ago?
Yeah, 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where did that idea begin, and how long did it take you to actually work up the courage to say, hey, this is my idea, and here it is?
I didn't take long to work up that courage, right? So, no, so this goes back to when I was 16 years old. So, 97, my dad was a sheriff in Cleveland County from 91 to 2003, which is a county just adjacent to us. And yeah, so oftentimes what we would do was the state would call the sheriff's office and say, hey, we're going to be doing marijuana eradication, whatever. And, you know, the sheriff's office and the state would work closely together in that county. Being 16 years old, they had a Huey come up. My dad's a sheriff. He said, hey, won't you jump in the aircraft with me? So I did. I got to fly left seat up front of the Huey with Roy Sumja. I'll never forget the guy's name. Man, 8 hours of that, and yeah, I was done. I said, okay, I know exactly what I want to do. Right? I played guitar, and then I found out what a helicopter was, and I was done. I said, I don't want to play guitar no more. I want to fly, right? So yeah, it started back then, and you know, being an aviation enthusiast, I didn't have any formal training or anything. I wasn't in the military. I went just a few years out of school and went into law enforcement. That's all my family had ever done. So worked with the police department in Piedmont, then came here 2005, and then built some time on the road as a patrolman, and then started learning more about public safety aviation. And I remember sitting out at the airport most of my time at patrol. When I went on a call or patrolling or whatever, I was at the airport seeing what was flying in, running tail numbers, just getting acclimated with what was going on. And I said, you know what, I'm going to reach out to some of these people throughout the country who have surplus aircraft. So I started hearing about that and got a better grasp on it and wrote up a proposal for the chief. Walked in, I said, hey, I really think we need this. This could be a good asset for East Central Alabama. And he wasn't very enthused at all. He said, look, I don't like that idea. You know, he hadn't been chief long, and I get it. And our budget wasn't then what it is now. So I totally understand. So I left, right? And I'll basically, he told me without telling me, you need a better proposal. So I went back and I drawn up a better proposal, submitted it to him again and said, hey, what do you think now? He said, man, I like that. I had a guy out of Italy. He took an OH-58, just a blank slate OH-58. And I sent him a picture of our patrol car. I said, hey, look, I'm going to attach this to the front of the proposal, right? Make it look pretty. And he sent it back to me, and I sent that, and that was the first page of the proposal. And the chief said, hey, I like this now. I understand what you're talking about. So that's how really the things got started rolling. He signed the approval for the 1033 program for us to start looking for an aircraft. And from then, we just kind of built a program slowly and surely throughout the years. It was years before we was able to get an aircraft, even after that. So, once the chief's approval went on that form in 2011, things started slowly but surely kicking off, right? It was a very difficult process, but yeah, it was absolutely worth it looking back on it. Yeah, that's how it got started.
What was the time frame from 2011 where he said yeah to actually having that first aircraft?
Thank you to our sponsor, Technisonic Communications. Technisonic Communications is a proud provider of the critical airborne communications equipment utilized every day on every mission. Law enforcement, EMS, forestry, federal and military operators all trust their communications to Technisonic. Visit TIL.ca to learn how Technisonic can support your mission communications.
2015.
Okay.
Yeah,
so 4 years of work to
absolutely.
get to that right aircraft for you, get the opportunity, the right aircraft to get into to a hangar.
Yeah.
Wow.
And back then, the 1033 program, a lot of people can tell you this. I think they're still around that worked the programs back then, especially when it came to aircraft. Really political, right? So everybody that had any component or any aircraft where they would really hold on to it. And I get it, right? They don't make these things anymore. So it was really difficult to get your hands on something. And when we finally came across something, we scooped it up. But, we got our first aircraft in 15 was an OH-6, right, Drew?
Yep.
Got that. And we ended up finding not too long after that a 67. So we thought, okay, we're going to be good stewards of the program and public safety aviation, and we're going to transfer that OH-6 to another agency in the state so they can use it well. So what we were trying to do was just build up aviation capabilities throughout East Central Alabama, and I think we've done that for several different agencies throughout the state now.
Well, it's quite a few units around here.
Aside from you guys, what other public safety aviation agencies exist in the state that can respond to calls for service?
There's several. I mean, you've probably got 10 or 12 units within the state, including ALEA, Alabama State Law Enforcement Agency, and then it goes from Limestone County, which is North Alabama, all the way down to Dale County, and a couple of municipalities, Tuscaloosa PD, Coleman Police Department. A lot of counties are flying the OH-58 still.
Yeah.
So there's quite a good bit of aviation units. I don't know their capabilities in terms of mission equipment. I don't know what kind of cameras they're using or anything like that, but hopefully we're getting to a point now where we can all start training together and sharing some ideas more closely.
That's a big part of tomorrow's class is, kind of bringing everybody under one roof.
Yeah.
And starting that networking process, because that's so important. And then from there, you kind of build out and start training together, like you said, and, start realizing each other's capabilities and can lean on each other for things that you may not have that they have and vice versa,
Absolutely. And whether it's equipment or just the knowledge from another agency that they picked up and something that we don't necessarily understand or know or haven't experienced, they can share that information with us. That's what, it's important to have these associations and stuff. So I'm not advocating a association for the state or for this region or anything, but if we can start working more closely together, and that's like the class you're teaching, Martin.
Sure.
We've got 20 plus aircraft coming in and 37 agencies that are involved in this. And that's a big deal for.
Yeah.
Oxford's kind of a small place, but to be able to get those people together is a big deal for us.
I'm excited about teaching the class to this group, but I'm also excited the networking that's going to happen before, during the breaks, at lunch, and after that among all these agencies makes me smile, because we know and how important that is. And it's exactly what you're talking about, Jake. I mean, the more you know about other people in the region and the state that are doing things, everybody does it a little different. And the more people you talk to, the more you're going to learn. And you might come up with a jewel where you go, oh my gosh, we did not think of that. How do we miss that? But somebody else thought of it. And that's the networking part. We always say it at the aircrew course that John attended. We said, you're going to learn more from each other this week than from anybody that stands up here with the clicker and teaches. And I believe that that's true. That'll be great tomorrow.
It's not just from that one day. It's from future contacts you might have. You get somebody's card and you're like, I have a question for them. And you call them and you're getting answers from questions you've got years later. So it's It's kind of a never-ending process, which is cool, and that's why I love the networking side of it. I know people have heard us talk about your class quite a bit. For folks that may not be aware of what your class is, can you give us a brief description of the class you're teaching and kind of the intent behind it?
Well, the class is apprehending fleeing suspects, and it's basically about containing, searching, and capturing suspects that are on the run on foot, and how patrol, canine, air assets, SWAT, command staff all work together to accomplish that mission. And tomorrow, the emphasis is going to be on aviation for obvious reasons. It's the same class that I teach everywhere, but like last week I was in North Dakota with drones and canine. The class emphasis was drones and canine for that topic. Tomorrow it'll be aviation because it's, for obvious reasons, it's a fly-in. But that's it in a nutshell. And it's just one of those topics that I learn something new. Every time I teach it, I learn new things. Last week, it never seems to end. I feel lucky to have the opportunity to come here and do it. We worked hard on this. The idea's been sprouted for here, a while ago, and here we are. Here we are, and we're able to do it, and we found a way to do it in a big way. I mean, next thing you know, it wasn't just a class. It's the podcast. It's sponsorships. It's MD and Dallas Avionics stepping up. It's an amazing coordination and planning from the people in this hangar, especially Jake, with certificates and lunch and the facility. That's the hard work. I do the easy stuff. I mean, I stand up there with a clicker and yap for a while, and just try and share information. But the work prior to this has been phenomenal, and I'm thrilled to be part of it.
I think about your class, and it's been around for a while, but I think almost now more than ever, the importance of what you're teaching that class is there, because the last 5 years, the folks in law enforcement, the new folks in law enforcement, have been kind of taught to have more of a hands-off approach in how we deal with crime and criminals.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the young folks that started in COVID hardly had contact with any suspects. That was the policy of many departments. So you start with that generation, and now they've got a couple years of patrol under their belt. And with increased liability and all that across the board, across the country, and even worldwide, a lot of agencies have almost taken the approach of wait for a call to go out and then respond, which is unfortunate because proactive policing is so important. But a lot of agencies have that approach now to crime fighting. So you have these young cops that have been on the street and really don't have experience setting perimeters and knowing the importance of dealing with that. From an aviation standpoint, I remember going up on requests, and you knew if that request, the patrol shift that initiated that request hadn't set a perimeter, you're looking for a suspect that footbailed from a stolen vehicle, for example, the odds of you catching somebody is pretty low.
Yeah. So
you're just like, we're just going to go fly around in circles for a while. Whereas, you have a proficient patrol crew who set a perimeter, and you get called up, and you're like, okay, they've got a good perimeter. The odds of you catching somebody is pretty high. I don't know, have you seen with the younger folks in your own agency in the region, their proficiency with setting perimeters and apprehending suspects, has that changed at all from previous years?
I started in 2000. Well, I started in 99 as a reserve officer in Cleveland County when my dad was a sheriff up there. He didn't want me to, but I went behind his back and worked with the captain who was over the reserve officers. Anyway, so from 99 up until this point in my career, I never have personally experienced any in-depth training as it relates to perimeter containment. So to answer your question, it's hard to evaluate, right? Because I don't know, I'm out of professional services now. I don't know what training the guys are getting, but I've never experienced anybody with any formal in-depth training as it relates specifically to perimeter containment, especially when you have an air asset involved. Yeah. So that's the importance of Jack's class tomorrow is, getting our guys in the area to kind of have a brief understanding of perimeter containments, right? And when I say brief, Jack, I know you're going into great detail, but how often are we as an aviation unit or as administrators of the police department going to go out and have recurrent training on that specific topic? And right. I think after having your class tomorrow, I think that's going to be an often recurrent scenario for us is to train on perimeter containments, because that's where your success is made, is how
absolutely how
successful is your containment, yep. Right? And yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting out and teaching our guys how to do that, because we're not successful unless, they know how to do that and become successful. So yeah, it's, to answer your question, I haven't seen a difference because I've never seen any formal training that's associated with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about the effectiveness and efficiency of what we're doing as a combined aviation ground support program. I think once that training's in place and these successful perimeters are being established, the apprehension rate is going to be phenomenal. You're going to see a big increase in that because we truly are working in unison. Then we've become a team, whereas sometimes it's team A and team B, and I think will unite a lot of what our mission is.
Well, and it's really hard too especially for our guys, right, to set up a perimeter, because they may have that shift, they may have 5 guys working, which is, that's way too low, right? Everybody's hurting for people, but right now we may have 5 guys working, and 2 of those guys are tied up on a detail. So now you've got 3 guys on the road. You've got one of the patrol officers, he gets in a foot chase. What resources or what other people does he have to wait on for? He don't have the resources to set up a perimeter. He's got to just take off after the guy, right? So hopefully now with the air asset, then we can teach, even if it's 2 or 3 people on the ground. Hey, here's how we effectively set this.
That's right. And we will talk about that.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, sorry to go in that rabbit hole, but I do like talking about that class because it really, again, going back to effectiveness and efficiency, it really has a big impact on our effectiveness and how efficient we are with doing the mission of catching bad guys.
Yeah.
I go back to our conversation we have with Lee Majors from Leon County, and he says we catch the bad guys and find the good guys. I think that's something to that effect.
Yeah. Find the bad guys that don't want to be found, and we find the good people that do want to be found. Something like that. It was really cool. The phrase you used, it was great. And it was true, because you're looking for a felon at 1 minute, and an hour later, an Alzheimer's patient or a kid that's missing. So it covers it all.
I like that. Lee's a good guy. We've had the opportunity to meet him multiple times. So
he's a good leader.
He's a good guy.
We enjoyed that.
I had folks from his agency reach out and say, "Hey, thanks for interviewing him. He's the best boss I've ever worked for."
Yeah, it's good.
And it's proof right there that he's not just words. He's actually he does what he says.
That's good.
And
he's been very helpful for us as well.
I'll bet.
Yeah. He's made a big impact. He's working beyond his own agency. His impact in the region and the country and even the world through his work with APSA, which is pretty neat. So, Drew, going back to you, I know you talked about your military service and the fact that you're with the airlines, but can you go back before that and talk about where you grew up and kind of how you wound up in the military?
I was raised in Western New York in the Finger Lakes, and as a kid, started flying when I was 12.
12?
Yeah. 12 years old. So that was my first flight, my first hour of flight instruction. Yeah, it was a birthday present on my 12th birthday.
That's cool.
And then I worked at an airport as a kid. For every 10 hours I worked there, and I was cutting grass, snuggle and show, fueling airplanes, running the FBO. For every 10 hours I worked there, I got an hour of flight instruction. And that's how I built up my time. This is in high school. And then I wanted to fly military. So went through ROTC to start with, a Navy ROTC as a midshipman. And I thought, well, I was going to ROTC at one school, and I was doing my other college courses at another school. So it was taking up too much of my time. So I ended up as a Marine officer going to a PLC program, because you can just go to OCS in the summertime and have your academics however you need to do it during the year. I did that. Second summer of OCS, I got hurt and lost my flight slot. So I healed up and ended up with the Army as a warrant. Went to Warrant Officer Flight School in 1990. Graduated as a Cobra pilot for that. Went to Korea, Fort Hood, and other multiple deployments. Ended up being a maintenance test pilot in Cobra. Since everybody had flown a Huey in flight school, ended up being an MTP, the medevac unit in a Huey. Flew 58s, and then at the end flew Chinooks, and I ended up teaching the maintenance test pilot course at Rucker.
Jeez.
So on my weekends and evenings at Rucker, I would go and I would flight instruct on multi-engine airplanes, because we had a steady stream of Army pilots that wanted to get a multi-commercial add-on to their rotor ring certificate. So I was an assistant chief pilot at a 141 flight school, built up my multi-time, and in 2000, the Army wanted people to leave. So I took money and left. I went to the airlines. I was hired by TWA, but before I even started my class date, they furloughed us all because of the American Airlines merger. Then I ended up at Comair for 7 months. I flew to Brasilia for 30 days on reserve in Orlando. Then got junior manned and displaced to the RJ to Cincinnati. Went through RJ school. The day after I finished RJ flight sim, they went on strike. This is 2001.
Jeez.
So I spent 2 months on strike, and then I got hired by, it's NetJets now, but it was called Executive Jet Aviation. Got hired with them in the Citation 10, and they were hurting for pilots back in 2001. This is all pre-9/11, and we had a captain's upgrade before I even finished simulator training. So I never was the first officer at NetJets.
Wow.
Went right into the 10, flew that for 16 years, did all kinds of international stuff, was an international training captain, did oceanic crossings for guys, signed off oceanic crossings. And currently, we got rid of our 10s, and I'm in a Citation Latitude, and I'm a check airman for that.
Jeez. So you have a little bit of aviation experience.
So my question to Jake is, when are you going to try and find somebody with some experience to help
Hey,
you
look,
right here?
man. I mean, this guy comes up and he starts talking all this stuff right here, right? You guys don't forget when Microsoft Flight Simulator first came out, I was killing it. Okay?
Yeah.
So regardless of what he says, I got some experience too. Drew's an asset.
My serious question though is, how did you win the lottery? How did the two of you connect that you were both together these years of this mission here at Oxford PD?
Thank you to our sponsors, MD Helicopters. MD Helicopters is a leading light helicopter manufacturer for civil and military operators worldwide. We build safe, agile, hard-working light helicopters that consistently deliver reliable performance. As a result, our operators enjoy superior confidence, backed by durability that enables more uptime.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a good story.
All that got working out. So I obtained, it was 2015 when I got the OH-6. I got it from Chilton County, Alabama, and they flew it up to Pell City Airport, just nearby. And Drew actually lived over close to Pell City.
I did.
But so we were having to house the aircraft in Pell City, which is a good 35-minute drive to the airport from the police department. So I went to Talladega's airport, which is 10 minutes down the road, and I went in the FBO and I started talking to Jim Brock, who's a really cool guy. And I said, hey, look, we need a hangar. Do you have anything I can put this OH-6 in? And he's like, no, I don't have anything now, but I know this guy. Do you need any help? I was like, yeah, I know this guy who he used to fly in the military, and he was a Cobra guy and all this other stuff. I said, yeah, give me his number. So I called him. Drew and I met. We met out at Pell City Airport.
Yep.
I'll never forget, you had your flight suit on that had the wolf sticker on the side, or the wolf patch and all that stuff. Anyway, a civilian flight suit. And anyway, so we met, and he did a flight with one of the guys who was helping us back then, Greg Turley, super cool guy. And yeah, we just kind of formed a friendship after that, and ended up getting rid of that OH-6 and got a TH-67, and ended up moving it up there with Jim Brock to one of his hangars.
Sure
so
did. Yep.
When we started, it had been years since you had flown a helicopter.
10.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so we did hey, can you still wiggle the sticks on this thing? And of course it worked out just fine. And
Could give me a checkout, and we're on our way.
Yeah.
that was it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was
2015.
It was, but at the same time, Chris Posey
Yep, he
was
was
with
here.
us too.
He helped us get
Chris
the
Posey was he was very integral to the formation of Chris Posey. He's a wonderful stick. He flies with air methods and stuff now.
Yeah, he really flies that 206 well.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal stick. But anyway, he took me down to Shell Airfield down at Fort Rucker, and we picked up our TH-67, and he flew it back. And Chris was with us for a long time. It got really busy with air method and stuff, and he lives probably an hour and a half away. So
That's cool.
it was really time restricted on him. But that's how he and I became friends. And also, so Chris and Drew and I really kind of, once we got that aircraft, especially the TH-67, got it built up like we needed to, really kind of push this thing forward. And then Chris left because of his job. I still talk to Chris. He's a good guy.
It was the ugliest thing in the world, that orange and white 67 low skidded thing.
We had Pro Seal
everywhere.
Yeah,
we had that thing. So we got it painted up real nice, got the high skids on it, and we did an engine hot end on it, and we got it back. And that thing was a great, solid little helicopter for us.
Jefferson County Sheriff's Office has that now.
Yep.
Brian Clausen, the guy we was talking about in the...
So it's still out there flying.
It's still out there flying
That's
doing
great.
its thing, yeah.
Somebody else is benefiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Drew, you talked about your military experience and you just breezed over it. That was a big part of your life and a big part of the foundation of where you are now. talked about flying the Cobra, which man, that's a sexy ship.
That was fun.
The Huey, and then now you've flown the 500. Talk about iconic helicopters in American history. Those three are probably one of the three of the most iconic aircraft.
Yeah.
You know, the Huey by itself, just the sound of the Huey flying in, you're like, oh, that's the sound of freedom right there. So what's your experience been when you kind of look back between flying all those different helicopters and, you know, what, I don't want to say what's your favorite because I know that's probably a difficult question to answer, but, you know, looking back, what's your thought on flying those?
I've enjoyed it. It was kind of cool to fly something that was older than you were. Right? So, and that seems to be the trend. Was when I went through the flight school, all our instructors were Vietnam guys, and you know, they were even in the units, not just in flight school, but even in their units. Our W4 SIP, he was a Vietnam vet. You know, so that experience was wonderful to get. The aircraft were fun. They made you a better pilot because you didn't have the luxury of power or modern avionics or modern flight controls. So that part I really enjoyed. So it was fun.
That's cool. We were just talking about the Robinson helicopters and the benefit and value of learning to fly in those for what you just said. There's no power and there's no avionics, you know, steam gauges and basic steam gauges. So moving from that to something like an A-Star, oh man, you feel like that's a big upgrade. Got spoiled. I'm sure you had that same experience, right?
Yep, it's great aircraft. These are great aircraft. I really enjoy the 500 series. They're just fun. It's like a little sports car. It's like you strap it on and it's a good aircraft.
We talked about that earlier too. We talked about how you get in some helicopters, but MD you strap on, you know, and being in a flight in a MD, you experience that even as a passenger. You know, you feel like you're almost one with the aircraft.
Yeah.
What's your experience been flying the 500, in particular the 530, because there's a big difference.
Yeah, the 530's just got tons of power. I mean, and we've got this aircraft loaded down. I mean, we've got an air conditioner in this thing. We've got, you know, all the equipment hanging off the side of it. It's a pretty heavy aircraft, but plenty of power, plenty of maneuverability. It's safe. You know, when we went to that transition and then the MTP school out in Arizona, we got to fly with some very experienced pilots, CJ Snyder and Mike
He's
Taylor.
Great. Yeah,
CJ's cool. And then Mike Taylor, if anybody listening to the podcast has never had the opportunity to meet Mike Taylor, and hopefully one day you'll get a chance to fly with him, that is one cool dude, right? He can tell you everything there is to know, from the rivets all the way up to the blades on these aircraft. So that was a good experience going out there. We really got to put the aircraft, I wouldn't say to its limits, but you really find out what the capabilities of the MD product are. And we're very, very, very impressed with it because they're hand-built helicopters right there. You know, it's pretty cool to sit there and watch the guys out at MD Ted and all those guys who run the shop and everything. I mean, they'll get a piece of sheet metal in, and next thing you know, you got a full aircraft coming out the backside of this thing. And this assembly line, I mean, these guys are great. So I started flying. I got a lot of my experience in the 300 CBI, little 269s, right? So the transition into these was very similar. I mean, it's just a lot of the systems we were talking about, the old steam gauges and that kind of stuff, not a lot of power. You get that with the 300 too, right? So, transitioning from those to the 086 to the 530, it all kind of correlates there. So
yeah,
I'm very biased to these because I've got most of my time in them. Plus, the 086 aircraft that we've got, both of those aircraft flew in Vietnam. The opportunity for us to preserve a piece of American military history is really, really nice for us to be able to do.
Yeah.
I enjoy that because those two 086s that flew in Vietnam, I love flying them. That's my favorite helicopter.
Yeah.
It's the most fun to fly. So,
yeah, we had the opportunity to talk to Canine Torque and the Huey Vets crew a few weeks back. And the Huey Vets crew, what they do is they've got a Huey that was a Vietnam era Huey.
68.
And
a 68 Huey.
Yep.
Who are these guys?
It's called the Huey Vets. It's a organization. It's a nonprofit organization that's taken this Huey and rebuilt it, and they use that as a way to affect PTSD.
Oh.
And support veterans and continue the legacy and the history that came from Vietnam. A really neat organization.
The helicopter's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's immaculate. It's got the guns on it.
Nice.
There's no wire cutters on it. They made sure to point out all these little things that it's meant to be just like the 68 Huey that was flying in Vietnam.
Right.
And that airframe did fly in Vietnam. And They were meticulous, even down to the radios.
Yeah.
I mean, they've figured out ways to work through it where, the original types of radios work. And we didn't understand how they did it, but they said that was a big one. That was a very difficult thing to do.
Those old ARC radios are not very good.
Yeah. So I was thinking the same thing. We talked about how iconic the UE is, and they were saying how vets, even current day veterans, will get into that UE, and it's just, they just melt into it, and their emotions, and it's because it's a UE, just like the 086. It's those were a big part of that era of war, and so I like your attitude on that, maintaining history. Yeah, it's true.
The first 086 that we had, I was able to trace the serial number back to one of the pilots who flew it in Vietnam, Don Callison.
Nice.
And Don came up from Florida after 40 plus years, and he got to sit in his aircraft.
Wow, that's cool.
And he got to, I wrote an article listed in Absence. It's pretty cool to see this guy sitting in his, 19, 20-year-old kid at the time, and now he's sitting back in his aircraft after all those years. And
wow.
all the stories that came back and those kind of things, and showing pictures of him having he had it landed beside a creek bank or something, and the flood came, and the whole tail of the aircraft, skids and everything. He's got a picture of him digging it out, in Vietnam.
Wow.
So he's telling all these stories, and we're sitting right here with this aircraft. So, it's a pretty big deal for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Look, going back to your service, this isn't on the outline and didn't really prepare you for this question, but you think about all the things you did in the military. You're a young man, a lot of time on your hands from time to time. I know you guys were busy, but you think back, what was one of your favorite memories of your time in the Army?
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, sole 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
I think the most fun I had was when I was a Cobra pilot. A lot of it had to do with the squadrons I was in, because it was a close-knit group of guys. We had a good time, but the aircraft was fun to fly. And who doesn't want to blow stuff up?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So
my grandsons want to blow stuff up. I want to blow stuff up.
He still wants to blow stuff up.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Jake's like, nope, you can't do that here.
We did have to change it. What Cobra model we had is like, you can run, but you just die tired.
That's right.
So now we have to change it. You can run, but you can't hide.
Yes. Kindler and gentler.
Yeah. He still wants to put the original guns on the OH-6, so I have to.
It's got all the wiring for it. Just saying.
Well, Jake, we talked a little bit about your experience here at Oxford, some of the assignments you worked, but can you, for the folks that are listening that don't know where Oxford is, can you describe where Oxford is in the state, and then a little bit about the agency as a whole, as far as how big the city is, what kind of, we got the speedway that's nearby, but then going to the police department and how big you are and all that.
Or how small we are.
Yeah.
No, Oxford is, so if you look on the I-20, we're right in the middle between Birmingham and Atlanta. So we're an hour each side of both of those cities. The easiest way to describe this for anybody who's a fan of NASCAR, we're just east of the Talladega Superspeedway, just a few minutes. So that's the easiest way for us to describe where we are. The department is about 80 people, including support staff, so we're a very small agency. Our city is 32 square miles, about 22,000 people. So we get questioned a lot from citizens, and a lot of times on social media, why do you need an aircraft? And what people don't understand is this is a multi-jurisdictional asset. So we serve East Central Alabama, several counties. It's about 950,000 residents, about 4,700 square miles. So we go from Etowah County all the way down to we've gotten calls in Chambers County before, Randolph, Clay, Lineville, city limits, those kind of things. So we're all over, and we even go to Jefferson County and do a lot of flights too. So the municipality itself and the agency itself is very small, but this resource has a huge impact on East Central Alabama. There's a couple of agencies. Etowah County's got an aviation unit, St. Clair County, and they're dotted throughout the state. Our capabilities of this aircraft really, we get a lot of calls in this area.
And we talk about these assets being a force multiplier. The argument can be made that because you're 80, that's why you need an aviation program, because you need that force multiplier.
Yeah.
And where you're taking the 2 or 3 folks out of the patrol setting and putting them in a special operations environment, well, it multiplies those officers, by magnitudes,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a huge resource for the community. So it's actually maybe a good time for us to talk about some of the political challenges that you've faced, and, how other folks can maybe address some of the challenges that they face based on your experience.
Yeah, getting this thing started was, there's you have to play politics a lot in it, right? So knowing the right people, and I tell you, there's something that I love most about public safety aviation. This probably is what I love the most about public safety aviation, is when I first got started with that one-page proposal, I was able to pick up the phone and call pretty much any aviation unit throughout the country, ask for advice, ask for help, whatever I needed. And everybody, this has been, 12 years now in the making. Everybody is so helpful and so welcoming when it comes to that. I've traveled throughout the country, be it vacation or conferences or whatever, and if I get on Google or whatever and search for a nearby aviation unit and just go knock on the door, hand them my card, hey, come right in. So taking that information and transferring that over to how you're going to sell that in-house to make your unit succeed and grow, it's been challenging. So you have to understand your audience, understand their personalities, and learn how to work with your administrators, both in your police department and your city. So if I could give one piece of advice to anybody, briefly off the cuff, is stay persistent, stay consistent, and just, if they tell you no, because you're going to get told no, okay, cool. Yeah, but you're going to have to tell me no, a million times, right? So just keep going back, keep working it. Have trust in what you're doing, and it'll all work out.
How patient are you as a not a cop, then a lieutenant? Are you a patient guy?
No, absolutely not.
Well,
absolutely.
So how were you so patient? Because you were very patient. I mean, when you talk about that first letter in 11, 4 years later, helicopter, and now 8 years, later, here we are in a beautiful hangar with incredible aircraft. You had to have patience for that. How did you do that?
You have to gauge success based on your individual moves. So if I was able to accomplish a portion of a policy that I didn't know about, right, doing research or going formal training or something like that, I would count that as a win, right?
Okay.
If I was able to make contact with another agency throughout the country who could give me some advice on how to maybe structure something different to win a little bit better, I would count that as a win. So it's not that I was patient, is that I would measure my successes a little differently in this than I would, personally.
I like that. That's really smart.
I had to understand that this was not going to happen overnight.
Yes.
So how did I really want to gauge the success of this unit? And yeah, I totally agree with you, and I appreciate what you're saying. We're in a phenomenal hangar with great people and great equipment, but we are not where I want to be.
Yep.
So we have succeeded in some things, but I still don't feel like I have fully succeeded with the unit. So I'm going to keep going. We're going to keep knocking it down and making things happen, but that's still going to require that same level of patience year after year after year after year. And I'm hoping that I can get people up through the unit that can start doing some of the administrative things that I can do, so I can actually enjoy this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that, at least before I retire,
What you brought up is interesting. The yes, when you got the yes, that's not the finish line.
No.
That's actually when the work begins, right? So you got the yes, and when you got the yes, just to compare today where we are with this beautiful hangar, got 3 aircraft, support personnel, all the elements needed for a successful program. Compare that to where it started. You talked to us about what that looked like when you first started. You told us earlier about the aircraft that you started with.
Well, I know we had mentioned prior to our first aircraft being an OH-6, it actually wasn't an OH-6. It was a Shimango motor glider. And they used these things. I think they were like AM200s or something like that, but they used them out at Brazilian aircraft. They use them out in the Air Force Academy, and they would train a lot of their guys out there to do. I really don't know what they did with them, but I can tell you that they were a horrible platform for public safety aviation. I mean, you're looking at a 57-foot wingspan. It had 100 horse Rotax on it, which is a cool engine. We never had any problems out of that. But I mean, when you had to do observation on a call, I mean, you were 60 plus degrees trying to look, and you can't see anything. And so the only thing, and we had this conversation yesterday, the only thing that aircraft was really good for was it kind of helped me solidify some of our policies, and things in terms of when our unit was to deploy and radio traffic. And I mean, you got to think, I didn't know anything. We didn't have a logo. I had to design everything. So I didn't have anybody in house to say, oh, you can't do that. I have to go on the internet. I have to make phone calls, or I have to get up in that dadgum Jamango and figure this out on our own. So
I don't know what that is, but it sounds funny.
You got to look that up, dude. It's hilarious.
Look under dang gum.
Yeah, dang gum Jamango.
I don't know how you spell any of those words, but you'll find it.
No, so we got that. It's a far cry from what we had at this facility. This was when we built this. I think we built this police department in 2009 or 10. Anyway, so we got this, and it was just trees and a little bit of field and that kind of stuff. And it's pretty neat because you can see what other people's can. I don't care if it's aviation unit or music or film or whatever. If you're creating something like that, right? You can see it, and other people can. And that's the hardest thing, is to try to get people to understand and to see what it is that you actually are looking at. So we finally clear all this stuff out, and things start coming up and being built, and paint goes on a helicopter, and people can actually see now what I've been looking at for all these years. And that's kind of a weight off your shoulders. See, I told you, right? Here we are. I told you.
When you're walking out of here at night and you're turning out the lights and locking up and looking back at this, does it get to you sometimes? I mean, do you just smile, or does it bring a tear to your eye? I mean, it's gotta have some emotion to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because this is incredible.
It makes me smile every time I know.
Yeah.
It does, and it does. I'm still not where I want to be.
Yeah, right? I understand that.
But wow. I'll tell you what I'm most happy for is I've got some really good guys in this unit. And I've been able to help these guys develop a love for aviation that I started with.
Yep.
Right. And we all find that, whatever our passions are and those kind of things, as we get acclimated with those and we get experience in them, we forget of how it felt when we first got started. So to watch these guys get started in aviation, public safety aviation, and get enthused about it and be able to accomplish and do things that they like doing, and I'm a part of that, that's what really makes me tick. Man, I really like that.
And we've seen that today in meeting your people.
Yeah,
and,
we got some good groups.
You're very fortunate.
Yeah, we got
very
some good
fortunate.
people.
I think any good leader wants to leave what he's found better than he found it. And you're doing that, And
I appreciate that.
The good leader also leans into other folks. And I think a good leader wants to make those folks better than he was or she
100%.
was at the job. And I can see you guys doing that through your succession planning. You guys are already talking about the day I'm not here, what's going to happen. And you both are wanting to have people in these positions that can take this to a new level that it hasn't yet gotten to.
Absolutely.
That's pretty neat. That's not a common leadership trait you find in public safety. So kudos to you guys for that. And again, going back to kind of the reflection thing, go back, think about that first flight you had in that Django or whatever you called that airplane.
Dang
gums your mango. There you go, Jay. I'm going to get you a T-shirt that says "Dang gums your mango."
Large.
Yeah. Okay.
But your first flight in that, could you see a day where you have a purpose-built, brand new MD530F sitting in your hangar?
Not at the time that I had this Jamango, the dadgum Jamango. Yeah. Not at that time. I didn't know what aircraft it could be, but absolutely I could see that.
Oh, that's great.
I could see that the day before I walked in the chief's office with the proposal.
That's cool.
I knew exactly what I was looking at.
True vision.
Yeah.
And so when I was flying around in that aircraft or whatever aircraft, or if we was at a T hangar or we were at a conference, and we went to Prince George County. It's a great story. I love this. We went to Prince George County and we were evaluating aircraft. And I convinced the chief, and at the time, Captain Palmer, this hangar holds his name, Steve Palmer Hangar here. He's a great captain. He was a huge advocate of the aviation unit getting bigger. So we talked to Chief and Steve. They're going up to look at some kind of equipment up in Prince George County. So we get in touch with the aviation unit up there. Aaron Smith.
Aaron Smith, yep.
So we go up there, and we've got a TH-67 at this point. So this is after 2017, right? So this is probably late 17, where we know, okay, we've got this TH-67, but we don't have any equipment on it. We're going to have to eventually get a larger aircraft. We know this is coming. So we fly up there, and we're excited, man, because we just moved into this facility. We've got this pretty aircraft sitting here. We go up, we meet with Aaron and them, and they're got these NOTARs with equipment and all this stuff. And they're going around, and they look at Drew, and they said, well, what kind of aircraft and equipment you got? We got a TH-67. Well, cool. What kind of equipment it got? He's like, we've got an iPad. And I just, you got an iPad and stabilized binos. And I started, oh my God. And Chief's laughing at him, and we're, so it all bleeds back into, we kept pushing, we kept making it work. And, to watch all these other aircraft and other units be successful really just fueled the fire.
Yeah.
I don't want to be better than any other aviation unit in the state or country. We're not looking to do that. We just want to be better than what we are right now.
That's awesome.
I know we got a little bit way to go.
Great attitude.
Yeah.
We're going to get there.
Great vision, great attitude, perseverance. Oh, man.
Yeah.
You're on the right track, that's for sure. Not everybody has that, Jake. Good for you.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother. I hope we're doing the right thing.
You are. We see that.
Yeah.
And now you just got to keep working to find a chief pilot with experience, and you can bring
Man,
this
what
all
are you
together.
talking about, right?
Oh my God. I couldn't believe when you kept going, Drew. I'm like, man, how many aircraft has this man flown? This is incredible. I love it.
Well, it puts you in a unique position to where it comes to aircraft selection. You guys are looking at what to go to, and you've flown a bunch of different aircraft. Can you talk about your ultimate decision to go with the 530 as compared to anything else?
Our first thing we really had to do is we had to nail down an administration and what our mission is going to be, because they came out and said lots of different things that they had a wish list, and I was like, well, we're going to incorporate all these missions. We're going to need something gigantic, hoisting, long line, and we knew that wasn't going to be our mission. I mean, we got the State Bird. It's not that far away. They got a hoist. They can handle that stuff. We looked at several platforms, went and test flew several platforms. And we went with the MD because of its ability, its size, its noise level. Because, we're operating pretty much out of a residential heliport, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot quieter than the other aircraft. In our aircraft, we got the increased gross weight, so we're up to 3,350. So it can carry a little bit more than a normal F model can. We decided on that aircraft because of the affordability and sustainability of it. That's one that's going to keep us flying for less money, and its size and abilities and its power keep it in my opinion, probably the safest and most versatile patrol platform. And that's one of the reasons why we chose it, really.
Right.
Yeah. People talk about identifying the mission. It almost seems cliche to say that, but it's so important, right? Because you're right. Once you identify these missions you want to be a part of, now where you have this patrol platform, that's your 99% job. You're doing that all the time, but you've got all this equipment strapped on. You're flying this big, heavy aircraft. It's not super nimble in it now because it's so heavy and it's so big.
Right.
Whereas you guys said, no, we're going to be supporting patrol. That's our job. So we're going to identify an aircraft that suits that, which is the 530, and you've done that. So well done. Again, it is. Everyone says identify the mission. It almost sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true. So
have to.
Yeah, well done on that.
And we've configured the 530 if we wanted to grow into missions, long line, BAMI bucket, that kind of stuff. We've configured the aircraft to be able to do that. But a lot of people, when they first get started, I think they say, I want to put. I've a lot of calls throughout the years. Helped a lot of people trying to get started in aviation unit in their department. And what folks I want them to understand if they're trying to take the same path is every time you put a piece of equipment on that aircraft, it's going to require, those maintenance costs associated with that equipment. And not only that is you got to be proficient with that piece of equipment. So that's, more training. And so when we talked about hoisting and those kind of things, and the administrators wanted to do that, we'd spend more time training how to hoist than we would hoisting. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which that's okay. But, for 1 or 2 hoists a year, we're not going to bear that kind of expense to do that. So
we had a unique opportunity with this airplane. We got to basically from a shell, got to tell them what we wanted in it. So it is wired with everything we want from the ground up. from a maintenance standpoint, that's great, because as you well know, when you start adding things to aircraft that are existing, you're cobbling different avionics and different systems in, and then you got wires that you're going to end up splicing into, and it can be a nightmare. But from when this one was built up from the ground up as a hollow shell to our specs.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is important.
Absolutely. Yeah, that purpose build is awesome. And it's a tribute, again, to what you guys have, the work you put into this program. Yes. But I want to just throw a shout out to the maintainers out there that are maintaining these things. Not only the systems on board, but the avionics and all the mission equipment. Because like you said, there's all these things that weren't necessarily designed to work together, and they are, and when it comes to troubleshooting them, and these maintainers are oftentimes tasked with figuring out where the problem sits and coming up with a solution for us. So props to y'all for working on this stuff. Jake, going back to you and in your experience in your career here at Oxford, you talked about work patrol and kind of working your way up into admin. Of all the assignments and all the projects you've been a part of, I would imagine aviation was probably one of your most impactful and favorite projects. But aside from aviation, what was the most impactful project that you've been a part of?
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsors, MD Helicopters. MD Helicopters is a leading light helicopter manufacturer for civil and military operators worldwide. We build safe, agile, hard-working light helicopters that consistently deliver reliable performance. As a result, our operators enjoy superior confidence, backed by durability that enables more uptime. Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking. Thank you to our sponsor, Technisonic Communications. Technisonic Communications is a proud provider of the critical airborne communications equipment utilized every day on every mission. Law enforcement, EMS, forestry, federal and military operators all trust their communications to Technisonic. Visit TIL.ca to learn how Technisonic can support your mission communications.
As we conclude this special episode of the Hangar Z podcast, we've had the privilege to delve into the extraordinary achievements of the Oxford Police Department's aviation unit. Protecting the public is a multifaceted challenge that requires constant vigilance, dedication, and strategic coordination across various sectors. Law enforcement agencies face the daunting task of safeguarding communities amidst evolving threats and complex environments. From preventing crime and responding to emergencies, to ensuring public safety during natural disasters and pandemics, the responsibilities are immense. With those challenges in mind, Oxford PD's choice of the MD530F model as their primary airborne mission platform speaks volumes about its exceptional versatility and performance, perfectly tailored to their operational needs. The MD530F's agility, powered by the Rolls-Royce 250 C30 engine, ensures reliable performance in diverse environments, both urban and rural, that helps Oxford PD rise to the challenge of protecting its citizens and visitors. Stay tuned to the Hangar Z podcast for more inspiring stories and insights from the world of public safety aviation. Cheers.
Time to close up the hangar. Thanks for joining us on the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts.